Hello, today I want to talk about Levy Rozman and his attempts to get the Grandmaster title. Now, I'm lucky enough to be a chess Grandmaster. I got the Grandmaster title in 2005. I experienced a lot of the things that probably Levy Rozman and other players are going through. 2005 I got the Grandmaster title, yeah. But in 1997, way back in 1997, I got the IM title. I relatively got the IM title quite quickly. So I didn't even play my first FIDE rated game till about 1994. Didn't play any junior chess. And I very quickly became an IM because I worked quite hard and had a big breakthrough around about that period. I got to IM, I got to 2400. In 1997, I probably should have kicked on and done a lot of work around about that period. I probably would have got GM fairly quickly. However, I got into that kind of lazy chess lifestyle of just bumming around, relying on my natural talent, and I missed several GM norms by half a point. So I kept getting in positions where I could get the GM title, a GM norm, but I kept blowing them. So for about a 3-year period, I didn't get any GM norms, even though I could have maybe got several in that period. I finally got one. I believe in the first year was in 2000 in London. Ironically, that's where I grew up, so it's ironic that that's where I got the first GM norm. So I eventually got the title in 2005, and the first thing I would say is, does it matter becoming the GM if you're like an IM? I think it absolutely does. I think that it's very hard to look. I mean, I had a lot of colleagues that were GMs that I felt that weren't better than me. And it's very hard to look them in the face, look them in the eye, when you know they've got a title that's higher than yours. I don't know, it's stupid really, it shouldn't matter, but it does. So I feel like it matters a lot. There's a lot of IMs who could become GMs, but there's also a lot of IMs who will stay IMs, not because they're not good enough or they don't have the ability, but for whatever reason, be it that life gets in the way, or they maybe just don't work hard enough on their weaknesses, or they just don't play enough chess, or there's all sorts of reasons. Now, Levy Rozman is obviously a very famous chess streamer and chess personality. He's made a lot of money from Twitch, he's made a lot of money from YouTube. Seems like a nice guy overall. He's helped a lot of people to get into chess. He's helped raise the profile of chess. He's trying to get the GM title. I think that's been fairly well documented for a while now. He came quite close to getting the GM norm at a recent tournament. He certainly probably should have got a GM norm there. So the question is, so it's interesting, I noticed this Reddit. So the question is, will Levy Rozman get the GM title? I believe he will. Or I think he's got a very good chance. Even though he's older, he hasn't really dedicated himself to playing as much as perhaps other players have. So there should be more improvement. And that seems to be coming at the moment. He seems to be working hard on the game. His chess.com ratings are quite high as well. He's been over 2,800, I believe. He's generally around about 2,700. That's probably as strong as most GMs, to be honest with you. So it shows the talent levels there, because if you're quite good at blitz, then his chess.com ratings are quite similar to mine. I regard myself as a fairly reasonable blitz player, so anyway, some of the comments here are quite interesting. So somebody said Hikaru Wrench, etc. seems pretty stalwart in their opinions that Levy Rozman will not become a GM unless they are already significantly close. Slight grammatical errors there, I would say, but other than that, or the way they've presented the sentence doesn't seem completely correct to me. But I don't doubt their take, but unless it should really Levy Rozman, unless he's just say Levy Rozman will not become a GM. Probably the simplest way to put that sentence. Anyway. But I do not understand the logic. A child can go from 0 to 2,500 in 15 years, but a man can't go from 2,350 to 2,500 in, say, 10. Yeah, this is the whole point, I think. I've had this debate before about adult improvers. I generally think people don't improve when they get older. Somebody makes the point later on. I won't go through all the comments, but somebody makes the point later on in this thread about if you were like retired and you had like infinite income or something like that, you could become a GM. I don't think you can unless you were already, say, 2450 level and you were very close to it already. You're not going to become a GM because it's just too hard to improve that much at that age. I think you lack energy. I think now I've noticed, I get more tired as I get older. If I had to become a GM now, I'd have no chance of doing it. My rating's not high enough from 24-25. Other people mentioned in this thread as well that, which I would agree with, that ratings are deflated. So 2500. When I got to GM, it got me a lot of confidence. So I got to 2573. Obviously, then I had a bit of a disaster at Chess Olympiads, personal disaster, and chess disaster. That kind of threw me off. I just completely lost momentum. I then went backwards. And obviously after that I never quite recovered that level, sadly, but I think the ratings were slightly inflated then, if anything, compared to what they are now. I don't think if you had 2573 then, I'm not doing myself a disservice, but I don't think you might not even be over 2500 now, because the way the rating system's going. This is what other people mentioned in this thread, that the problem that Levy Rozman has is not just getting the GM norms, he's got to get his rating high enough. He's about 150 points short at the moment. If he plays in genuine, like most opens I play in now, they're just like 4 or 5 of the games you're going to play players born around 2008, 2009, maybe even younger than that, and they're all like underrated. They're studying chess for several hours a day. It's just very hard to gain rating points for an older player, I would say. So, that is one of the issues, that's one of the challenges he faces. However, I think a lot depends on the individual. We're saying about a man can't go from 2350 to 2500 in, say, 10. If you're just playing, and you're just playing occasionally and you're not doing much chess work, and you're playing maybe 4 or 5 tournaments a year, you're not going to get from 2350 to 2500. If you're doing a little bit of study, a few tournaments. However, if you're really going after it, helter skelter, and you're playing a lot and you're studying a lot, and he's probably can afford, Levy Rozman can probably afford to get training and tuition from top grandmasters if he wants to. He could have a GM, he could have a super GM sitting in the corner of his room. Afford to pay that person, just sit there, and every now and again he just asks them questions and they have to respond. So he hasn't got anything stopping him other than himself. Like, is he good enough to get there? Now, in my opinion, what I would say is that I would scrap the Grandmaster title, which obviously would harm me, but I feel that players should not be rated on what they did 20, 30 years ago. 15, 10 years ago. It should be about how good people are now. So therefore, if you're an IM who's, say, 2500 or 2490, but for whatever reason, maybe you don't play enough tournaments, or it's just hard to find enough tournaments. I mean, in Europe now, there aren't that many tournaments. Even Europe is one of the better places for tournaments, and there just aren't that many tournaments that are worth playing in because the prize money is so low or the conditions aren't that great. So it's very expensive to become a Grandmaster as well. And it's very expensive to play even if you are a Grandmaster. So what is the point in becoming a Grandmaster? However, sorry, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but the thing is, I feel that it's just very difficult to gain enough rating to become a GM now, because there's so many good junior players around. And I feel like Levy is up against it, but I do think it's possible because he is attacking it. But going back to my point about scrapping, because I got distracted by my train of thought. My whole point about scrapping the titles is that I would personally scrap the GM title and scrap all titles, actually, for that matter. I feel like the rating system is accurate enough to measure how good people are. and that is all you can say. But the thing is, there's no way that a 2300 2280 GM should get better conditions than a 2490 IM because of something that happened 30 years ago. Now, they did fulfill the requirements. They got the free norms, they got the rating, so that is something, it's true. But I do feel that it's more difficult now. You need to take that into account. There's times change, and it's more difficult now to get the GM title. So that is really my take on it. I think I would scrap the title, but as far as now, because we're not going to scrap the title and we have the title system in place, becoming a GM is important in my opinion, because I feel like you feel inadequate if you're an IM. I would have felt terribly inadequate if I'd have stayed at IM. If I hadn't had that period in 2004, 2005, 2006 where I played really well, I might never have became GM, and I would have spent the last 20 odd years being annoyed about the fact that I wasn't a GM and other players were, that I felt that weren't stronger than me. So it's an interesting point. Let's see how some of the comments, because they know they can work from remote and still study 5 to 6 hours. Levy is in a weird place. What everyone is saying about neural plasticity is, I'm not sure how you plastic, it's to do with like how easy your brain absorbs information. In my opinion, when you're younger, you should study a lot of openings as well, because you absorb that information, so you can really master openings quite well, chess openings. And also, obviously, end games, any element of chess, very well. What somebody makes a point actually in this thread is that the problem is when you're a child, you're a clean slate, so you don't necessarily have all these issues. But when you're younger, when you're older, you've got a lot of ideas about chess that might be wrong. It's very hard to remove them. And I think that's true with me. My understanding of chess is maybe slightly off compared to, say, a super GM. So therefore, it's hard for me to get to that level. I can't improve that much. I just think it's harder when you're older. I do think people say that it's not about how your brain functions. I think it is. People say it's just because adults have less free time. That's true, but I also think it's something to do with your brain development, and I genuinely believe that. I've spoken to people online who disagree. They claim they're experts in their field. I think it is to do with your brain development. I think how quickly you take on information. I think when you get older, it is hard to improve. However, Levy Rozman is already at a high standard. So therefore, he doesn't really need that much to become a GM. He doesn't have to improve a crazy amount to become a GM. He's already quite close to GM as it is, in my opinion. He's already an IM. It's just getting a rating. So I think he does have a good chance. I would say roughly about 60 to 70% chance of becoming a Grandmaster, in my opinion. But obviously there is a chance that he won't be able to do it. I think it will mainly revolve around whether he can gain enough rating to get it. That's going to be the biggest challenge. I mean, to be honest, there's stronger players than Levy. No disrespect to Levy. Someone like Harry Grieve is probably a stronger player than Levy. Even if someone like Harry is struggling to get GM title, he will get GM, but it's proving to be difficult. Jonah Willow, an English player, is another very strong player. He's struggling to get GM. Brandon Clark has a rating, but he hasn't got any norms. So there's some very, very strong players out there who aren't going to become GMs possibly. And so it's no disrespect to Levy, but he's got his work cut out. He seems to have got a handle on the issues, so I would expect him to improve over the board, even if his neuroplasticity isn't as good as it was. He's also in a somewhat unique situation where, like most people in their late 20s who aren't GMs, his financial ability exactly is very important, that he can easily afford to spend as much time as he wants trying to become GM. somebody said, forget Levy and Feingold. Consider the pool of GMs and IMs as an incredibly small group of people that are almost exclusively all started young and spent ungodly. This is very true, actually. There are loads of prodigies that didn't hit GM despite all the opportunity in training world and still being at a normal age for it. John Bartholomew essentially just needed to gain a little rating. So a lot of these, they mention John Bartholomew in these threads a lot. And they say, you know, he worked out that it wasn't worth it to become GM. I would agree with that, really. It's not worth it. I mean, it's not changed my life. You know, I didn't suddenly get £100,000 deposited in my bank account because I became a Grandmaster. That just didn't happen. So he goes on to say, I think considering both Levy and Rozman have become a bit stronger than when they first hit IM, they would hit significantly higher than their peak. Hikaru was saying he needed more than one opening to get GM, but quite frankly his return to 2400 is more about getting back up to speed. As Rosen downplays his tournament. Rosen seems like a very good player. Eric Rosen? Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. It's very true. It's very hard to learn a new skill when you're older, but this is the whole point I would make. Levy Rozman is already a very strong chess player, so he doesn't need. It's not a huge goal for him to make. He's already made really the main part of becoming the GM, in that you've already become a very skilled player. Now he just needs to get over that last large big river that he now faces, or that last great big mountain he needs to climb, which is to get to 2500. As I say before, like if I had to become a GM now, yeah, so there's lots of comments here, lots of interesting and very intelligent people commenting on this thread. There are probably hundreds of thousands of kids worldwide who have the potential to become GM, have unlimited free time parental support. Even if only a very small percentage of them decide to commit to chess, there's still a huge talent pool to draw from. The number of adults with potential to become a GM and an unlimited time to grind for years without worrying about money and other responsibilities is probably close to zero. So it's hard to get evidence to show whether it's possible or not. That's very true, yeah. I just think people, once you get older, you just don't improve. You're essentially treading water. So anyway, that's my opinion about Levy Rozman. Can he become a GM? I believe he absolutely can. But obviously it's still like a very difficult task to do that, because mainly I think not because of the norms. I think if he plays enough he will get the norms. I think it's mainly because of the although obviously to get norms you have to perform at 2600, right? That's why 2600s are so impressive. Anyone 2600 above, they're essentially getting a norm in every tournament they play, or averaging a norm in every tournament they play, you know, over the course of their career. So that's very impressive. I wasn't able to maintain that. I got to 2573, but wasn't able to maintain that level for very long. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible. Let's see what happens with Levy. I would predict that he's going to get a GM norm, his first GM norm over the next few months, and then we'll see from there.